Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
Live or not live, so Better Business Brewing, our live Q&A, we decided that we needed to take it up a notch. It wasn't good enough just to answer questions live. We needed to get a little drunk doing it, or at least enjoy a little alcohol doing it. So we thought we'd invite all of you to come have a drink with us. Thanks for coming.
How was your day?
You know, I was busy. You know what I did today was pretty cool though. So I have somebody here locally that I've seen present a number of times, and great person. She had a lot of nerves every time she presented, and I've seen her present a number of times. So I offered her pro bono to do some presentation training because I like her. I'm close with her. We see a ton of the same people. We're in the same groups. We network a lot together. And I just felt like it was somebody I could really have a really big outsized impact on by offering some free pro bono training. And so I started that today. We did a full hour of presentation training. And it was really interesting because part of the reason I was so interested in doing it is I wanted to hear from her without any leading, Doc, but you know what I mean when I say leading, but I wanted to hear from her what she really felt like she could use the help with, what was important to her about public speaking and presenting, what were her pain points. And it was really interesting, you know, the feedback I got. So that was a really pretty cool part of my day.
Yeah, it sounds pretty awesome. Big part of that Be Rich mindset, right? Help others along the way.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because you know that in regards to where I like to spend my time and energy, a lot of times I'll steer away from some really intense one-on-one stuff because I prefer working with people in a group setting. I like the brain meld of a lot of people, and I like kind of what that draws out from people. But it was really rewarding to help out and see a difference in just 30, 45 minutes. You started to see that shift in how she was even carrying herself. Really, really kind of amazing to see how quick that can happen.
Welcome to the life of a therapist, my brother. That's kind of what we do every day.
You know, brush them off, brother.
That's why we keep doing it. It is when you see those changes take place, it's what keeps you driving you to keep doing it. And that is a big part of why I keep doing it and doing that one-on-one work.
Yeah, I mean, I can really see it because it was rewarding in a different way. I mean, I help a lot of people with both my businesses, but I absolutely, you know, this is something I really enjoy speaking to. Yeah, well, you know that. You know me in public speaking, getting in front of people. It's something that I thrive on. So, it was cool to do. It really was.
That is awesome. It was a beautiful day too.
Yeah.
One of the nicest days we've had here in South Florida in quite a while. It wasn't like scorching hot. It was a beautiful day. And I did actually get to go out on the motorcycle a little bit to.
Nice.
I had to make a run to the gym, so I figured that's the best way to do it, right?
Nice, very nice. How's the gym?
The gym, it was actually Orange Theory today. As you know, that's my new adventure. It was actually good. Went to a different one closer to the house that I haven't been to before. And the playlist was just on point. I was singing along the whole way. Slightly disappointed. I was 30 calories away from 1,000. I thought I was going to hit it. And I don't know.
We got to create some perspective for people because, you know, I know a lot of people, family members that do Orange Theory, and 1,000 calories is absurd. That is so much calories in what, an hour? Was it 45 minutes or an hour?
We did an hour today. Yeah.
That's a lot of calories to burn in an hour, man.
I'm a big dude. I got a lot of calories to burn, more so than there was one person that was motivating me that with the splat points. I don't know if some of our listeners are familiar with Orange Theory and their splat points. As a bigger guy, you kind of get you burn a little bit more, so you get a little bit more points. But there was somebody that was just like neck and neck with me, and I'm like, I need to win this day because
yes, that's what I'm talking about.
And we were there, and we finished tied, just because we were just neck and neck. We were both at the red zone, and it was a lot of fun. And it was, like I said, I think the music helped. So they had a very wide variety of music, anything from rock to some like older rap to some newer stuff. So it was like a very eclectic group, and it was good times. And I got on a motorcycle, and that was like the highlight, driving back. Nice breeze. So good day over. That was the end of my day after sitting in the computer, in front of the computer for like 7 hours straight in session. So I needed that outside.
Yeah, that sounds nice. It was a gorgeous day. And I will say, I'm really excited. I didn't bring this up earlier, but this is a pretty cool thing for me. So I'm not like I don't splurge on myself much, but for years I wanted prescription sunglasses. Finally broke down and ordered them a couple weeks ago. They arrived today. So I got my brand new prescription sunglasses. Can I tell this story a little bit? Because this could be a nice segue into our conversation, into our Q&A, if it's cool.
Is it a good story before we introduce what we're drinking, or should we do the introduction of what we're drinking and then tell the story for the segue? What do you think?
Okay, all right, yes. We'll do the what are we drinking first, and then we'll jump into it, because it's a very important lesson that I had to remind myself of, and it validates a lot of the thinking that I recommend for people when it comes to the sales process. So let's talk about what we're drinking, and then I'll tell my story.
That is called, what we call in the business, a tease for later, right? We get the people, we pull them in with the idea of that good story coming up, and then we let them have to sit around for a little bit to build that anticipation. We know what we're doing, even if it doesn't seem like it sometimes.
Hey.
So the doctor is drinking. I'll see if we can get it up on the screen. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Little Johnny Walker, Song of Ice. It is a limited edition. Came out from the Game of Thrones series. This is my third bottle of it, and I do need to go get another one before it disappears, because it is like really good. So I really enjoy it. It's let's do it professionally here. I'll do a little sniffer and a little sip.
I'm curious, Johnny Walker. So you've got what, like red, green, black.
Red is we don't talk about red.
We have a funny story about that too, don't we? We got a lot of good stories. Gold, and then of course you've got blue way up there. Out of the blends available, blue is like one of the tops. So was it Song of Ice?
Song of Ice, yeah. They also have the Song of Fire, so they have two. That one's a little more smoky, so it's not as big of a fan. This one's got like a nice flavor of green and grassy with notes of vanilla and tropical fruit. So it's just got a nice smooth finish. I kind of like it for blends. I mean, we can't always do the single malts. Sometimes we do, but tonight's a good blend night, I thought, and it has some Game of Thrones fans hopefully watching us could appreciate some of that, because what I do is I drink and I know things.
And if you happen to be sharing a drink with us and watching live, let us know what you're drinking. Be interested in seeing, because I took a similar tack. So I didn't do Scotch. I just did a little. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this.
A little whistle pig.
Yeah, 10-year rye, which is fantastic. It's really good. And I guess if I were to share with you what's said about it, it's a 96 by Wine Enthusiast. So it's a good one. Complex and subtle. Scent of honey, vanilla, and faint clover. Flavor reflects caramel, burnt orange, and a whisper of smoke. Now, if you happen to be anything like me,
Yikes.
You don't really know what the F any of that really means. I just think it tastes good. I like it.
Yeah, I have a pretty good palate for a lot of things. But I think that's one of the places I do miss it is trying to pick out those subtleties of flavors in drinks. I can do it great in food, but trying to pick out those subtleties in cocktails, I don't do that as well. So like the slight subtle notes. I mean, obviously it's a big flavor, like a vanilla or a cinnamon is going to stand out, right? But most of those subtle flavors, they kind of blend for me. But you do it in food, I can nail it.
But dude, like sometimes I wonder what these descriptions are like. Burnt orange. Oh yeah, I had burnt orange last week. I had a burnt orange Sunday. Come on, how do they come up with this stuff?
Well, someone accidentally forgot it one time on the stove, and I said, "Ooh, that tastes pretty good. Let's throw it in a drink."
Somebody,
and then charge double.
Lighter, yeah, a lighter and an orange peel. Oh yeah,
charge double.
Put that in the whiskey.
So we do have some good bourbon, some good scotch today. No beer. That's initially how the Better Business Brewing started out for us, as we started doing a little brewery tour, which we'll be getting back to soon too. But it was a lot of fun, and we just wanted to take it virtual and kind of keep going with it, and drink with people all over the world. We don't get to do that locally, so that's the best way to do it, is right here.
We're trying to make this a thing, which is funny because I've really resisted the virtual happy hour. So for me, like I'm not too interested in a virtual tasting. It just doesn't strike my fancy. But if I can learn something and have a drink and chill out, and I'm already in front of my computer and maybe just like salute with a few people around me, I'm down for that. So hopefully the lab and all the mad scientists that join us will jump on board.
Well, and the other thing too is just, as we talk about the Be Rich mindset, and we talked about like giving back and helping others, and rising to mastery, and inspiring that greatness, all that fun stuff that we do. I was giving you an open to kind of fill in there, but you just totally missed it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's hard because I'm on the Facebook page, so I can look at the comments. So everything I see is delayed. I'm hearing you in real time, but I'm seeing you delayed. So it's a little harder for me to process that. And if you didn't notice, I started drinking.
Focus, grasshopper. Well, as I was saying, but part of that is we do want to be able to share some knowledge and give back. And this is a great place for us to do that. So once a month to hop on here, have a cocktail, learn something about that, but also, share some tips and tricks and techniques and all those fun things with all us awesome people in the lab. You can ask questions. You can discuss a topic that you'd like to see. And that's one of the parts of being in the lab is you get first shot at that, right? So as a lab, as part of the lab community, you get first option on questions and topics and what you would like to hear more of. And that could also lead into future podcast episodes. That could lead into the blog that we have. These topics can go in so many places. So you're doing a lot of benefit, not just for yourself. It's also doing a lot of benefit asking those questions for everybody else inside the lab, because they get some of that. They get access to that knowledge too. So now I'm dying to hear your story. I think we teased it long enough. So
all right.
Dive on in.
I'm not used to you talking that much, and I'm stunned to hear so much from you.
Well, it's because we do most things in the morning. This is when I wake up, man. This is the time.
This is when I start to call it a night. All right. So I got to preface this story. So, and I don't know how many people do in this group, but my other business, besides what we do here in the lab and with JB and the doctor, my other business, I'm specialized in the mortgage industry, and I have long sales cycles. I mean, typical sales cycle, really at least 30 to 45 days at a bare minimum. A lot of times we're talking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Some of my cases extend beyond a year, depending on what's going on with it. So long sales cycle. And I have a real hard rule of thumb. And that rule I follow, we'll call it religiously, because I'm very serious about it, is every week my clients get a call from me, whether or not I have anything at all to update them on. It doesn't matter. Every single week they're hearing from me. And the reason is I'm making in a lot of situations. I'm a part of the process and maybe what might be the last large financial decision people make in their lives, or at least a very major one that they're not going to make many times. So if you can imagine, stressful situation for a lot of people, Doc. And so I'm religious about it. And it's really interesting because I told you the story about how I got my sunglasses, and I went out a couple of weeks, and they're prescription sunglasses. So I went out a couple of weeks ago and I ordered them. And then the store I ordered them from, almost an hour from where I live. So it's a hike. I just happened to be down there. It was really conducive to getting it done. I'd wanted to get sunglasses for years, so they were important to me, but I want to reiterate, I'm just talking about sunglasses, right? So I don't know how important sunglasses are to you, but on a scale of like 1 to 10, they're probably not 5 and up. Am I right?
Sunny day, it could be a good 6 on that day, but yeah, I got you.
Yeah. But generally, stop being a flippin' ass. Generally, like in the world of importance,
in the big scheme of things, we're not probably reaching a 5. Yes.
Yeah, we'll call them a 2 or 3. They're sunglasses. They're not like a massive financial impact on my life to order prescription sunglasses. A few $100. So anyways, it's an amazing thing. I ordered them a couple weeks ago. And just this past weekend, I turned to my wife and I said, I'm really kind of anxious here. I haven't heard anything. I don't know when they're supposed to come. I know they got delivered to the store and then the store needed to put the lenses in, but that's all I know. And are they going to do it right? Are they going to screw it up? Do they have everything? So I was getting really kind of upset and nervous that I hadn't heard anything about it. My anxiety was starting to go up. Again, this on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 2 to 3 item. And I'm arguably dealing with 9 to 10 scale items for people on my regular business sales cycle. So, on Sunday, they call me, Doc, and they say, okay, we got your glasses, come pick them up. And I'm like, oh, back that up. That's not what we discussed. What we discussed was you were going to ship them to me. You're an hour away. I'm not going, oh yeah, we'll ship them. We'll put them out tomorrow on Monday. And the guy hangs up. And I'm like, well, do they even have my address? Because now I'm worried. They're shipping them on Monday. When am I going to get them? Am I getting a shipping receipt? Am I getting this or that? Just the lack of communication to me was really frustrating. And I was super excited when they arrived today, but I didn't know they were going to arrive today. And I didn't even know, did they put the right lenses in? So there was this doubt in my mind because there was so little communication. Now I get it. It's prescription sunglasses. Maybe they don't have a ton to communicate with me over, but just not knowing throughout a 2-week process was really uncomfortable for me. So imagine if you're working with somebody for a longer process or a long-term relationship, how important it is to have communication. And I'm going to bring this into our theme of the week, Doc, because I think to me, this is all about innovation. If you currently have a process where communication isn't really well-defined, where your goal and intent is to get in touch with somebody before they feel the need to get in touch with you. So you're beating them to the phone. I think you need to innovate in your process, because I can't tell you how many times I've called somebody. They're like, I was just thinking about you. I was going to call you. I had a concern or a question, and there was nothing new about what I was doing. It was literally a Tuesday, which is the day I make my phone calls out every single week. It just happened to be that they needed to hear from me, and it was time. So interesting story. I just felt like it really resonated with me, and it really recreated, I guess, some of that affirmation, Doc, on why I have that process and why I'm so firm about keeping that process in my business.
Absolutely. And it actually is a theme of the week for myself for the last 7 days, I would say. I've come up quite a bit in therapy this week. Dealing with couples, communication was key. I mean, we hammered communication to no end. Most of their problems stem from that. But the other big piece is that unknown, right? There's a psychological shift right there, is when you're sitting, it doesn't matter what the scale is. So you said that's probably down to a 2 or 3 for you when other people are dealing with 8 or 9s. But think about that. When you're dealing with those 8 or 9s, you have some of those answers for them, right? Like they're dealing with it, but then they can call you or you call them, like you said, and you can give them some of those answers, and automatically that drops that scale. Even if it's a 2 or 3 and you don't have those answers, you're still dealing with that unknown. So that amplifies it. It takes that 2 to 3, shoots it up. Now, even if it is just glasses, it's the idea of where anxiety comes from is fear. almost all anxiety is based out of fear. And fear really comes from us not knowing. When we're sitting there waiting for results for something, think about, if you've ever taken a test at school and you don't have those results, that fear builds up. If you're waiting for a doctor's results, like a call, that fear builds up. Even if you get bad news, at least you get some news and then you know what to do next. When you're sitting there in limbo without any of that news, your anxiety shoots up because of that. So it's physiologically, it psychologically plays a big role in that. So everything you're feeling is valid in that one.
Dude, I love hearing that from you. And here's why. I just spent 5-10 minutes telling a story about communication and why it's so important to the sales process, but it's really more of a, how to communicate and how you should be communicating and how you should innovate. But you come in and you're like, well, this is why though. This is literally the science behind why you were feeling that way and why we need to communicate like this to people. And it's amazing to me because I struggle with fear. I think we all do. I don't want to assume that's just on me. Maybe it is, but I literally on the last 2 weeks or so of my planner have been writing that, my goal is to have no fear in the work I'm doing, right? No fear to have a conversation with somebody, no fear to put myself out there, to say no, to do this, to do that. I want to really try to eliminate a lot of fear in my decision-making. And it's not, you never get rid of fear, but I think maybe you want to eliminate the influence of fear or minimize it. So fear is not driving your actions or decisions. So it's very interesting to hear you come back to say, well, that whole thought process, everything you went through, all that anxiety, that was fear induced. And that's all coming from a place of fear. So I guess I got some more work to do.
Well, I actually want to reframe that for you a little bit. And there's some psychology words for you. But I do want to reframe how you're saying that, because you're talking about eliminating fear. And fear is actually healthy. Like a little bit of fear is a good motivator. What drives us, it's our defense system is set up off of that. That's where fight or flight comes. That's what keeps us alive. So you don't want to eliminate fear altogether. You just want to keep it rational, right? You want to keep it in some sort of zone where it's not paralyzing you, where it's allowing you to do that, but it's also a good motivator. It's a good way to kind of get going and doing that. So as you're going, don't necessarily eliminate it totally, but you want control over most of it. And then a little bit of the things you can't control are okay. Just again, you just want to keep that in kind of a balance. And if you keep that in a balance, like all emotions, we're allowed to be angry. We're allowed to be sad. We're allowed to be frustrated. We try to bury those things because they don't sound very great. But they're actually very healthy for you to feel all those kind of emotions. Again, you just don't want to over focus on them. You don't want to ruminate on them and have them just take over your day. You want to give them the proper amount of time they deserve and then move on. But embrace your emotions. Everyone out there, please embrace your emotions. They're actually very healthy for you.
I need some work. Keep working on me, Doc. Chip away, buddy.
We all do. That's why we're here. That's why we're everywhere, right? We're doing these things to keep going. Any questions out there from the audience? We'll give them a shot real quick for some of the people. I know we have some quiet watchers, which is cool.
Got some creepers, some voyeurs.
I just haven't drank enough yet to want to ask us. It happens.
Hey, you know what? It does happen.
And a quick, so we do also, this is released as a podcast episode for the week after we do this. So if you are listening on the podcast, obviously you can't ask questions live, but you can next month because we do this the last Tuesday of every month.
So they can ask questions live, Doc. We're just not going to answer them.
Yeah. That's true.
So somebody in the car next to them might look at them weird, wondering who they're talking to, but
And if you want to just not talk to yourself and actually ask that question to us, know that we are doing this every month. And you can also, anytime throughout the month, just shoot us a message, hop into the lab and give us a DM, shoot us an email, however you want to contact us, you can, and put that question out there.
Yeah. And if you think those two are crazy and you just want to ask somebody else in the lab, put in a post and ask. And there's a lot of people in the lab willing to offer some really solid advice out there.
Yeah, we have some great podcast episodes coming up. We just recorded a few just the other day. So this one will be coming out right before them. So if you're listening to this, just know that the next few podcasts are going to be really rock star. It's going to be really good. Just like the last few have been. So
let's take a break a minute for our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's the doctor from JBandTheDoctor. Just wanted to talk quickly about our 2-on-1 coaching service that we offer, as well as our group coaching program that's also available. As high-performance coaches for service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, we are hyper-focused on improving your presentation and positioning, powering up your productivity, and supercharging your sales. As we all know, people, we're just different, and one size does not fit all. So it's important to work with those that understand this and can tailor their program and training specific to your needs. And that is exactly what we do here at JB and the Doctor. With our Mastery with Science system and approach, we provide both the how and the why, proven by experience and backed by science. So to take advantage of this truly unique approach with the expertise of 2 coaches providing you with the very best of self and business coaching, just check out our website at jbandthedoctor.com/services for more information or to schedule an exploratory phone call. That's jbandthedoctor.com/services.
Ooh, from the from Karen, we got a question.
Ooh.
I like Karen. She's watching us, she's engaging, and she's asking questions. Who do you think she wants to answer, me or you? Let's go first.
Well, we should probably read the question. As we just said, some of this is on the podcast, and we also have people listen to the recording, so they might not be able to read that. So
I was going to make them pay for being on the podcast. You don't get the question. All right. Okay. Oh, and look at that. She wants it from me. So there you go.
So I'll read the question and then you can answer it. How's that sound?
Okay.
What are some ways that entrepreneurs can develop their communication skills?
That's an interesting question. And I'm saying that because I'm gathering my thoughts. I'm doing a little delay tactic there because it's a very broad question. Some ways you can develop your communication skills. Let me think about what might be the best way to filter this down and keep it concise.
See what happens when you pick JB?
He stalls. All he does is stall. He talks a lot. He says nothing. Perfect sales.
I'll help him stall real quick. If you are joining us right now, we have some people popping on in and out, which is great. Just please pop into the comments. Let us know that you're here, and we'd love to shout you out. And then if you want to ask a question after Karen's wonderful question, you guys may. So
yeah, I'm going to give you the pithy answer, I think, which is get out there and communicate. Nothing like practice to develop your communication skills. But with that said, there are probably venues you can take advantage of to get better at communicating. If you're speaking in public, for example, a Toastmasters is a fantastic way to really have a safe space to practice presentations and see a lot of different styles. There's a lot of Facebook groups, including ours at the lab, where we talk a lot about communication skills and how to develop them. But really, the best answer I have for you besides practice, I think, comes down to really active listening. Instead of focusing on what you're going to say to somebody, and you want to practice communication skills, ask as many questions as you can that are going to elucidate answers. And all I mean by that, Karen, is you don't want to ask a question that's necessarily a yes/no question very often, because that doesn't get you much information. And we talked about this in a number of our podcasts, I think, Doc. You really just want to practice asking questions that give you more information and insight into somebody and allows them to share. People want to get themselves out there. That's the best way to practice your communication skills. The more somebody else speaks, the less you speak, the better off you are.
Yeah, those are called open-ended questions. But much better than those closed-ended yes or no questions. And to add to what JB was saying, and I think his technique in the beginning was great, like some of that stalling by asking those open-ended questions, right? If you can pause, and you'll find if you do give a little pause, people will continue talking and give you more information. And it's usually after that pause, you get more of the value, right? So then you have a little bit deeper insight of what they're saying. So that's a great time to respond after that. What we do generally, though, is also what JB was saying there, is we start to think about our answer while the people are talking, and we miss half the stuff. And they do too, right? So when you're talking, be aware that people are formulating what they're going to say in response, and they might be missing some of what you're saying. So repetition's okay when you're talking. But I think JB hit it right on the head in the very beginning, though, is practice, right? Just get out there and keep communicating. like I mentioned earlier, talking with couples and communications, what I tell them to do in the very beginning is just start talking about things that are nonsensical, like just little quick conversations that don't really have to go deep. They don't have any meaning behind them. They just get to practice talking back and forth to each other, listening to each other. So that way, when those bigger challenges come up, they've had that practice of that easy communication. So I would say do the same thing. Practice talking to your family or friends. Any kind of communication skills that you heard us say, practice using on people that aren't going to judge you, where you feel more comfortable with. So that way, when you are out in front of someone you might not know as well, it will be like second nature for you because you've practiced it so much around people you are more comfortable with.
I love that. Something to be said about putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable to get better at it. Somebody who's very like you is going to be very easy to communicate with. Somebody very different from you, very difficult to communicate with. The more time you spend doing that, the better you're going to be with your communication with everybody. I want to shout out to Renzo for giving us a little comment, just saying great work. So appreciate that, Renzo. Thanks for watching and listening. Happy to have you, brother.
I was going to say his football team did not have a very good week, if I recall.
Well, you don't have to rub it in, man.
I'm shooting out because he did get one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league went there and then got hurt first week. So I feel really bad for Fitzmagic, as a Dolphin fan. He really came and sparked some good interest last year. So I was excited for him and Renzo and getting to have a good quarterback this year. And fortunately, that injury bug hit him early. So hopefully he'll be back soon.
It's a bummer. And a thank you to Karen for asking the question. Yeah, it's funny, Karen. I think a lot of times those basic broad questions are a lot more difficult to answer than a really pointed specific question can be. So kudos to you for asking it. It's a good conversation.
Well, and I think that leads to a good segue also about how communication is a struggle. Most questions you're going to get from people are going to be fairly broad when you're out there, because especially if you're doing something that they don't really know about. So if you're selling an item that they don't know how it works or anything about it, or if you're in a business that they're not familiar with, it's going to be a very broad question because they're not going to have any of those specifics. So it is great to kind of to practice answering kind of broad questions. And the best part about that too, for you as the person responding, is you get to kind of choose which direction you go, right? So if someone gives you a broad question, it does make it a little bit harder to answer a question because you can't pinpoint where you want to go, but it also gives you a lot more freedom to kind of just pick a place you want to take the conversation to. And then you can guide the rest of the conversation by how you start it. So it is a very, very powerful tool to practice and learn on how to, in your specific world, your specific business, what you would say if someone asked you a broad question and what someone would ask you if they ask you a very niche question. So we got any other answers out there or questions out there, I should say?
There's answers. I don't know the questions to them though.
We did Jeopardy style.
It's interesting to, even the way, to your point, the way we answered that question was not, I think, technical in nature. We didn't try to get technical so much with the answer. I think some people absolutely could have and would have. So you could say that even responding to a question like that gives you some insight into who we are and how we think, and maybe where we put the emphasis on what's foundational to the work that we do. Maybe I just need another drink.
Nothing wrong with that. The only problem with South Florida is the ice melts like in a matter of minutes. So I really need another one of those big giant ice cubes, but I'm not going to leave you guys hanging to go get that. So I'm just going to suffer through not having the big giant ice cube in my glass. Suffer for the art.
The answer is to drink faster.
That's true.
To the unasked question, because I can even answer those. So this week, Doc, our theme was innovation. And I owe a big shout out to the one and only Jeff Mount, because I sent an email out and I may or may not have been guilty of putting the wrong name of his company in there. Because we were talking about innovation innovation. And his company is called Real, not Innovation, but Intelligence. And I screwed the pooch a little bit. So I will say this. I told Jeff I owed him beer, and he said, you get me some bourbon. So Jeff, this one's to you, buddy. I'm gonna ship you a little something, I think, as a mea culpa apology.
That, which is, you know, I'll defend you a little bit. That is something that happens quite a bit with your brain. It does have that cross blending that happens.
Talk about my brain.
Don't worry, it'll be a small topic.
Oh, wow. It's a good thing I got a drink in front of me.
We'll keep it going. But it does happen a lot of times when you're thinking of a word and the other word kind of takes in the place of it because you said it over and over. It gets highlighted in your brain. So that repetition we talked about, it does play a role. But that is interesting. It's also a good segue. We did have a question that was asked on Instagram tonight for us. And they said, you know, they listened to our podcast. They heard us talking a lot about innovation. And they were just more of a fun question. What's our favorite innovation that we've come across? And if you guys listened to my Facebook Live the other day, I talked about like some bad ones like the pet rock. So I'm not going to go with that one.
The pet rock was an innovation?
Someone decided to put that into a box and sell it to people. Made a crap load of money. So
okay, sure. We'll call it. That's not an easy question. It just reminds me of I love Facebook memories. Yeah, I know some people don't love them, but I kind of chuckle at some of my older memories. I had a memory earlier this year from like 12 years ago or something about how I didn't want to change from my cell phone to one without a keyboard because I really felt like I needed a keyboard and a touchscreen alone wouldn't cut it. And so, you know, that's just a sign of where innovation had to kind of hit me over the head like a brick for me to accept it. And I think that happens to a lot of us, right? But best innovation.
And I'm going to pivot a little bit on that question. I think you could just name one that you really enjoy.
Okay, one that I really enjoy.
Because
right here, there's
so many of them, right?
I was talking to my pops a few weeks ago, and we were talking about my dad likes to play video games. He's got his best friend up in another state. They play video games together, right? And his Xbox broke. You know, to my dad, this is serious. It's his best friend. This is what they do together. My dad's a sharp dude, right? You know, he's a doctor. It's not like he just sits and plays video games all day, but when he relaxes, that's one of the ways he relaxes. So it just brought up this memory from when I was a kid of, you know, having a computer and a big giant desktop, right? Laptops weren't out back then. And my buddy would bring his big ass desktop over and we connected in two different rooms with like a 50-foot LAN cable just to try to play a game together. And most of the time it wouldn't work, right? That was what it was. And I mean, we're talking less than 25 years ago, right? So maybe 25 years ago or so, which sounds like a long time, but really it's not that long of a time. In 25 years, we go from, man, I have to carry a 50-pound brick to somebody's house, get a 50-foot cable, and maybe I'll be able to engage with them in another room, let alone we got people from all over the world potentially streaming in with us, chatting with us, asking questions. We're all over the place. We got video, we got engagement, we got comments. I could put polls up here. I mean, what an innovation we are in the middle of right now with this. That to me is one of the coolest things.
Definitely shrank the world, right? It's made, which I think is a wonderful thing because, you know, we kind of get stuck in your own culture, your own world, and you get those blinders on, and being able to interact with people all over and learn from them and see different viewpoints. I think that's just amazing. And that's one of the, so what your point is, I think that's one of my favorite things about that. So off the same kind of vein, just as that came up, like just one thing that popped into my mind, and I don't know if it's my favorite forever, but it does just kind of bring interest. I love listening to music. Right. So in the days when we wanted to listen to music, it was carry a big 100-pack CD holder around and switch it out anytime you want to hear a different song.
Yep.
And that's when CDs came out. So I'm a little bit older than JB by like a couple days. So we had cassette tapes, and if you wanted to get a song, what you had to do is listen to the radio. And right as that song started to play, you had to hit record at the right time to hear that, to get that song. So you usually had DJs talking over it, but that's how you kind of made mixtapes back in the day. So now things like Spotify, which I absolutely love, there's a billion other streaming services out there too. I'll say Spotify over and over again, just hopefully they'll sponsor us. And also that is one of the easiest places to get our podcast.
Hey.
But iTunes, Pandora, all those kind of things where you're streaming that music, to me is just amazing that I can put together a playlist of songs from any genre, any decade, and just kind of play it in a loop without having to change anything. I just push play and I'm good to go. To me, that's just like the technology and stuff that goes behind that. Children today, man, they don't know the struggle of using the pencil to get that tape when it gets stuck in the cassette player.
Uphill both ways, baby. In the snow.
Then they came out with CDs, but most of the cars didn't have CD players, so you had to have that portable one that would skip every time you hit a bump. The struggle was real.
The anti-shock technology, bro. I remember that. So it's interesting, Doc, because all this stuff we're talking about, we're talking about real internet. We're talking about some pretty crazy software innovation that took a lot of years to work itself up. Pretty radical changes in what we had 20, 25, 30 years ago, like radical, very disruptive stuff. But I wrote about this in our weekly newsletter that came out earlier today. Yeah, not all innovation. I would argue probably most of it's not super radical and really disruptive. Just the stuff that sticks out to us is. But like most things in life, it's kind of the little everyday innovations that over time, when they compound and stack on top of each other, have the greatest influence on our business and our lives. And I really kind of believe that, right? Innovation doesn't have to be big and disruptive, and everybody looks to innovate and be disruptive, but it doesn't have to be a massive disruption to have a real lot of impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of those things we don't even realize that are just so streamlined now because of the small changes that have been made over time. And I mean, you say 20, 25 years, a lot of these things we're talking about is like the last decade. And as I mentioned in the live the other day, we think about things like when we're writing our goals and we're thinking about what we want to accomplish, we write those short-term goals. We do those, 6 months, 1 year, a couple of years out, which are great because that gives you something to focus on right away. But I always challenge everyone to do is write some 10-year goals and kind of just get nutty. Like you can go extreme to whatever you think you could accomplish and then go beyond that by 100 degrees, right? Like you can, if you thought about 10 years ago, what would be crazy today, you haven't even thought about what could happen in 10 years from now with all this stuff that's going on and how quick technology turns things around. I mean, we're walking around with mini computers in our pockets. And before we had keyboards that, had to type on, right? Like those. And before that, you had those big brick phones. And before that was beepers. So how fast that has come out. And I mean, think about it. Apple's coming out with another new phone this weekend, I believe, right? So they turn those things around every year. And the technology is amplified every year. So challenge yourself to think of what you can do in 10 years and just go extreme. If you think it sounds possible, you didn't go far enough. Challenge yourself to go even farther.
And we don't have to go further than this screen to think about it. I mean, how many people really knew Zoom before a year and a half ago? I mean, really, people might have known about Zoom, but how many people was Zoom a regular part of their life or their day to day? 1 in 5, 1 in 10, 1 in 20. I'm going to go with 1 in 10. Just making up a statistic here. Now, who doesn't use Zoom on a regular basis? If you're a service-based professional and entrepreneur, I mean, heck, even if you're in the medical field, chances are you're using FaceTime or Zoom or something along those lines, video conferencing software, literally every day. And there's no way around it. And so, yeah, massive shifts in an incredibly short period of time. That's what can happen in 18 months.
So it's become, it's become like a word. Like it's just like an identified word now. Like I'm going to go Zoom someone just the same way as like I'm going to go get a Coke, even if you mean cola or a soda pop, or it's been branded that well that it's just become an identifying word. And that alone is just crazy how fast that happened. Like Uber, we're going to Uber. It doesn't matter if you're taking a Lyft or whatever you're doing. I'm going to go take an Uber, right? So
talk about an innovative company, by the way. I'm going
to
cut you off.
That's where I was about to go with it, right?
I'm still not even sure they're profitable, and yet it's a verb. I mean, my God, incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same idea, right? If you go back a decade, people were like, don't get in car with strangers. Don't give out personal information. Don't post your location. Now we're doing all those things daily. That's been less than a decade. We switched on that.
I have quite a few very funny Uber stories, but talking about don't get in the car with a stranger. I remember when I first started using Uber in San Francisco, when it first started coming out early on, I was out entertaining with people, bringing them out, drinking them for dinner, and I order an Uber, and it's like, financial district, San Francisco. There's a lot of cars moving around. Black car pulls up, SUV. And I just like open the passenger door, open up the side door for my guest, and sit in this SUV. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And the guy's like, who the hell are you? And it wasn't an Uber driver. It's just a random dude who pulled up on the side of the street for a second. I'm lucky I didn't get shot, right? Still something to be said about not getting in the cars with strangers.
Paying attention, mate. Yeah. I guess, we got another great question here from Karen. An innovative entrepreneur can sometimes face criticism for thinking outside of the box or taking risks. How do you recommend handling communicating with others in these type of situations? I love that one.
Oh God, so do I. I'm going to let you jump at this one first, but I've got strong opinions on this question.
Part of my French I'm going to take out of JB's box here is just tell them to go F themselves.
Fuck yeah.
Really think about it. Just like we were just talking about, like Uber and all these things, they all met that kind of like, who's going to get in a car with strangers? Like, who's going to do that? And it's generally people with vested interests that are going to give you the most back. Like, who's the one that complained the most about them? Taxi companies. Right. Or people with that closed mindset. And I think that's the biggest piece. Most people are dealing with that closed mindset. They can't think outside the box. They're safe. They feel safe inside their container. And especially when it comes to family and friends, right? They're going to be the ones that want you to be the most safe because they're concerned about you in different ways. So they're going to even be and probably who you're going to be communicating the most when you have these great ideas that you have to think outside of that box. They're thinking from safety. They want to protect you, right? That's their job, they feel. And if you're going to do something that's crazy and outside that box, they gotta push back against that. So it's just natural for some people to do that. And other people are just, they don't like to change because they can't see past their own self of doing it. And they would be afraid to do it. So if they're afraid to do it, it's got to be a bad idea. So again, just go back, don't worry about what they're saying. If you think it's something you want to try, and here's the thing, before I let JB pop in, because I know he's got a good one. Everything we do is an experiment in life. So if you think it's a good idea and you want to try, you test it, do it. What's the worst thing that happens? You just stop doing it. You learned. But something great can come out of that. So don't be afraid to push it. There's no big losses that happen from this. You might feel a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. You learned. Go get them.
Yeah. So I'm going to be careful how I frame this because I don't want to trigger the psychologist in you. But I think that's a whole bunch of people projecting their own fear on you bullshit. When I read something like this and I hear a question like this, thinking outside the box and taking a risk, people don't take enough risk. People look at risk like a bad thing. And I'm not saying don't go crazy with risk. Everything we should do should be a calculation of risk reward. But if you look at and think of it like a diagram where reward is up top and risk is, the horizontal axis there, I think most people would sit right in that corner up front with very little reward and very little risk. And most people are very comfortable being in that position. If you're an entrepreneur, you've already kind of turned around and said, I'm not willing to be in that little box. I'm already going to step outside of that box because I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to go make money for somebody else. I'm going to go make money for myself. I'm going to go take this risk and do it for myself. Taking risk to me is a part of being alive. And this could just be who I am, but I'm going to speak to who I am. And I'm going to speak to the people out there who kind of feel the way I do. If I don't have a little bit of risk in my life, just put me in a box and bury me under the ground. That's a reference to Saturday Night Live skit, by the way. I'm not trying to be really dramatic. Risk helps you feel alive, and nobody would get anywhere without taking some risk in their lives. You just got to do it, and you shouldn't be afraid of the risk, and you shouldn't be afraid of what people think about the risk. We put too much thought into what other people think. They don't really care. They just judge. You're the only one that really cares. It's your life. So you do what you're comfortable with, and you take the level of risk that you're comfortable with, but don't let somebody else's projection change what level of risk you're trying to take.
I think that's absolutely right on the head right there, right? It's their own projection. It's their own fear because they don't see what you see. And they wouldn't do that because they don't see what you see. They don't have your perspective of it. So then they're just projecting their fear to it, again, for that safety purpose, because I told you about it earlier. Anxiety is all fear-based. So that they get anxious just thinking about doing those things, but they don't get it. A lot of the times they just don't have the comprehension of what you're thinking. They're not inside your head where you're viewing it and you're mapping it out and you see what you're planning. And just think all those innovations we just talked about, how many of those would have happened if those people listened to all the naysayers? So as long as you're comfortable with, that's all that should really matter. If you're comfortable with trying it, and even close to comfortable with it, then give it a shot.
But there's a question here that I'm not sure we're answering, Doc. So I want to be sensitive to what was really asked to us. So how do we recommend handling communicating with others in this situation?
I thought it was to go F themselves.
Yeah. I guess in a sense you can tell them to go F themselves. You can have a conversation with somebody. And I think what you can ask, Karen, is you can ask this: is there anything that would move you from the position you're in into one where you could understand where I'm coming from? And if the answer is no, there's nothing, which I think a lot of times in today's day and age is the case, then you need to just say, hey, agree to disagree, and end the conversation, the discourse right there, because it will never find a middle ground. And that's the reality with a lot of communication today. And you just need to be able to kind of find out that sooner than later when you're having this conversation with somebody. Because if you're in this situation and they just can't accept where you're coming from, and there's nothing you can say or do that will move them over. They don't have to be in the same camp as you, but even to the middle, if you can't get them there, I don't think there's much point in the conversation. So that would be my real recommendation. Outside of just F them, which I don't disagree with, Doc.
That was mostly for effect. Obviously, if you know me, I'm going to communicate a lot nicer than that.
Yes, because it's all on a spectrum. We know.
But I think there's something to be said to have that mindset when you're responding to them, that don't let them get into your head. And that's where I mean that. When I say go F them, to tell them that it's more of in your mind, like have that mindset prepared that they're not going to sway you from what you truly believe. Obviously, when you're going to communicate it, you're going to see where they're coming from, right? Like what is their worry? Again, if it's family and friends and they're just worried about you, thank them, like appreciate, hey, thank you for looking out for me. And kind of just let them know, like, hey, it's an experiment. I want to see how it goes. There's no real danger. And, if I fail, I fail. That's okay, because then I learn and then I make some adjustments and I try something, either that again, or I try something else again. So if it's family or friends, you can kind of just let them know that you appreciate their thought of you. If it's someone you don't know, that's a good chance to kind of practice your pitching and how you're going to sell that innovation, and try to win that person over. It doesn't mean you will, but again, it's practice, right? You get a practice, like we talked about earlier in the other question about communication. Same idea here, right? Like, what are those things that are going to come up that you're going to reach as an objection, and practice just pushing it back on those. And what you'll do is you're not going to be perfect every time. You're probably not going to sway most of the people, especially when it's in the concept idea, but you're going to get better and better in your own mind of how you're going to build that out, right? Because now every time you handle that objection, you're going to think of something new for that innovation that you're thinking of. So all you're doing is helping yourself out. You're playing along with the people as you're communicating, but you're actually doing most of the work for yourself. So practice.
And there's a really effective thing to do here, I think, Doc, to your point, which is to put yourself in their shoes. What are they so afraid of losing, right? What are they so afraid of that they're pushing against you taking that risk or thinking outside of the box? Where is that discomfort coming from? Put yourself in their shoes. Try to think about it from their situation. It'll help you move to the communication and conversation to a middle ground. And anytime we can communicate from the perspective of our audience, we're going to be more successful at communicating to our audience, always.
It's an empathy piece.
Which every now and then I have, I think, sometimes.
You're getting better, Grasshopper.
Teensy bit.
Great questions tonight, guys. It's a great dialogue. Appreciate everyone that asked some questions and commented and shouted us out and shared. We're getting some notifications that we had a bunch of likes and shares as we were doing this. So I appreciate that. That is a great way to help us out. Obviously, we want the audience to grow because we want to help more people, and the only way we can help more people is if the audience keeps growing. So we appreciate everyone that takes the time to do that. That means a lot to us.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Karen, thank you. Renzo, thank you. All the likes and shares and views. Everybody, thank you. Doc, thank you. You give me things to think about when we have these conversations. Yeah, I learned from you too. So it's I get to enjoy a drink, the company, and learn something. That's a win-win-win.
Hell of a way to spend a Tuesday night, huh?
Not too bad. Not too shabby.
All right, so we're going to sign out for now. Remember, we do this every month, the last Tuesday of the month. You'll find us inside the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab is where you can, so if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you join inside the lab so you can get first access to this and you can ask those questions. Remember, you can find us on all our social media at JBandTheDoctor or on our website if you have any questions at JBandTheDoctor.com. And that's all I got for you. What do you think?
I think if you ain't consuming our blog, if you're not checking out our weekly newsletter, if you're not in the lab and seeing our stuff and hearing our guests that we interview, we've got some really interesting CEOs and guests that we've had on and we're coming up. I mean, you're missing a lot. I wrote in our blog, which is not yet released, but I'll give a teaser to the blog and let everybody go, Doc. There's, how do I want to say this? There's so much innovation in this world of online education and e-learning that's taking place. Higher education is changing dramatically in this country, and it's shifting and it's becoming $1 trillion industry. And the lab and what we do here is the genesis of this is built off the belief that we can shift how people do business, how people work together, how people communicate together so that they can, in a central space, have the tools, the resources, the wisdom to rise to mastery in their profession, right? To inspire others, to celebrate knowledge with each other, and to help people. The Be Rich mindset. It is a real thing we believe in. It is alive and well in the lab. And if you aren't consuming some of this stuff, I think you're missing some of the innovation happening in your face. And this isn't just happening here, but we are trying to embody it. So check it out, get involved. We'd love to hear from you.
What he said.
And learn from you too.
Absolutely.
It's a two-way street.
I can't emphasize enough how much we appreciate everyone that interacts inside the lab and like those comments and their posts and what they share and that knowledge. That's what it's here for, right? That just like JB said, it's sharing knowledge and learning. None of us know it all. So each time you interact with somebody, you take a little nugget, even if it's just a little nugget. It's just one more thing that you're putting on your tool belt that you didn't have before you did that. So can keep consuming, keep interacting, and we appreciate every one of you.
That's it. All right, Doc. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, my dude.
Until next time.
Peace out, yo.